Critical Blast, where pop culture gets blasted.
And hello, everybody. Doing a quick sound check here. Make sure that my sound is working. And I'm betting that it's not. So I'm going to take myself, pop right back out and pop right back in. Boom. And all right, we're going to test that the sound is working. Hopefully it is. And all right, that sounds like it's working. So welcome, everybody. I'm RJ Carter, Senior Managing Editor here at criticalblast.com. And we are welcoming with us today, you know him from the weekly Flash Chats, David Taylor too. David Taylor II. Let's say that correctly. David, how are you doing today?
I'm good. I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing great. Man, I'm really impressed by this Stargirl series. So I was glad you were able to join me today and kind of recap this last season before they get to the season finale here, the first season finale. It went fast.
It did. It did. And I was surprised as well in terms of how much I was enjoying it. And what I look for is that anticipatory feeling where you can't wait for the next episode. Like, no matter what happened in this episode, when's the next one? We want that one. And I had that feeling consistently with this show. So I was very pleasantly surprised as well.
Do you like the fact that it's you have to come back once a week, and instead of them dumping it like a Netflix formula would do, where you sit there and watch the whole thing at one time?
I actually kind of do. I kind of like a blend in my shows. I don't want all the shows to be just everything dumped at once because that's more stuff to do. You have to find some time to binge. And then also, if you're on social media at all, a lot of it's going to get spoiled.
Oh, yeah.
I like it to where everybody only has access to one episode at a time, and they're still going to spoil that. But at least people aren't talking, 5 episodes in the future. So,
exactly. Yeah, I hate that when you get the whole, you're like, here's how the whole 13 episode arc is going to end. I'm like,
right.
Well, I haven't even started yet, so why would you do that to me?
I haven't even started.
And I got this in the mail yesterday.
Oh, okay.
I DM'd you about that, and this is yes, I know it's Batwoman, and everybody hates Batwoman. The thing about it is that you get your 4 discs, and then tucked in the back of it there
is Crisis. Okay.
And that is, of course, at the end of that is where we get our first televised appearance of Breck Basinger as Stargirl.
Yes.
Quick little nod there. I haven't checked now to see if that scene we see her in is one that they cut from this series or if they shot it special for Crisis.
If I'm not mistaken, it was very brief, but if I'm not mistaken, it was a JSA shot, and she was in the front, and she did a little move with the staff, and you could briefly see almost everybody behind her. So I don't think that all of the people that were in that shot have been introduced on the show yet. So maybe that's...
I'm gonna have to pause it and watch it again now. And now that I have the Blu-ray, I can do that.
Right. Because I did read some slight spoilers for next week, but it wasn't really anything bad. But Breck was talking about how she's very proud of the season finale. And she's very proud of the fight choreography and all the stuff they had to go through. And she said there's some twists and turns that we won't see coming. So I hope all of that is true. I hope everything.
I hope so too. They really do have some good fight scenes in there. Breck and Yvonne particularly have some great choreography. I mean, Cameron Gelman as Our Man, he punches stuff. And and Angelica as Dr. Midnight, you know, she kind of just does this the whole time. She's got the Google glasses, and she hasn't really had a chance to show any physical capabilities yet. In fact, they've pretty much written her as somebody who doesn't.
Character. She's my least favorite character on the show, bar none.
Yeah. Yeah, she needs to come out of her shell some, or be drawn out of it. Less of the nerdy girl and more of the, okay, let's take the fight to the bad guys girl.
Well, let me tell you what I hope happens. If you're familiar with the Beth Chapel character from the comics, she's a doctor, and she's also blind. So they retooled the character for the show. What I'm hoping is that Courtney needs a moment of reckoning. She had a really good one meeting her real dad, but she's been in too many situations where she's put other people's lives in danger, and she hasn't been sobered up enough as far as I'm concerned. So what I hope would happen was that there's an accident that causes Beth to be blind. That's Courtney's fault. And then, like Matt Murdock, Beth has to begin to depend on her other senses, and all of a sudden the goggles have to retool and they have a direct interface with her brain, and she becomes more like the comic character, and she has to study, she has to learn how to read Braille, she has to learn how to live again as a visually impaired person, and then her relationship with the goggles changes because of that, and all of a sudden it'll add so much depth and to the character, and it'll give her a broader range to act, and it'll be one of those things where every time Courtney looks at her, Courtney would be reminded, that's my fault. And maybe she'll calm down enough to realize she has to train or something like that. That's what I'm hoping. Or I'll put it, that's the way I would write it if it was me. So
they're pretty much a sort of super powered, and they're not even super powered. They're super enhanced. Everybody's enhanced by their costume.
Right.
You know, Rick's not taking Miraclo because, that'd be a drug use, so we couldn't have that. So it's a magical hourglass.
Oh, okay.
And Yvette's costume was like, all of a sudden it just kind of like form fit to her and made her athletic with the claws and everything else.
That's right.
And then of course the goggles are self-explanatory. Courtney's got the staff. So they've got super weapons, but they're regular kids. So they're kind of like Mystery Inc. with really good tools. And it's like, hey guys, let's go fight the bad guys without any regard for just how bad these bad guys are.
Well, yeah, and and the thing about it is the show has bent over backwards to make Courtney drive that action in particular, because she basically wouldn't take no for an answer. And so once she made up her mind, I'm going to recruit this person and they're going to be part of the team, she didn't hear anything to the contrary. So we saw it again when she met her real dad. She had that sobering moment where she realized that a couple of kids are dead because I'm out here playing hero, and I won't necessarily say that either one of those kids are directly her fault, because I think they would have been killed anyway. But I do think she escalated the situation by showing that the new JSA was formed. And so she had that moment briefly where she understood what was going on, but she still has not really developed a real training regimen, and still really hasn't, really listened to Pat to the point where, I think they're going to keep racking up casualties. And so I want her to have that moment where she comes to grips with the impact of what she's doing and realizes I need some more training. And that hasn't happened well enough for me yet.
Yeah.
So
now, well, the ISA seems to be pretty much cutting off their own legacy, because you had the Icicle, who early on killed the Wizard and then the Wizard's son,
right,
in that bus accident, and then of course Brainwave Senior maybe killed Brainwave Junior. You don't get a body, you don't get a death. So he was buried under all that rubble, and then of course you had a, I keep wanting to say Huntress because the character had both names in the comics, and I was more familiar with the Huntress name, but they can't use that now because Birds of Prey. Tigress, Tigress and Sportsmaster maybe not killed the new Fiddler. I don't know whether they killed her or they just incapacitated her out of anger.
She looked dead to me, but okay, we'll see.
We'll see. But I think I like the cast. I like the characters that they put into it. I thought they gave some good depth to Yvette Monreal's Wildcat.
Mm-hmm.
And then we got a nice backstory as to the really horrible relationship that Rick grew up with his uncle, his very self-centered uncle who just kind of got saddled with this kid when Our Man and his wife went off and got killed by Solomon Grundy, which I love seeing in a show, by the way, Solomon Grundy
Yes.
done that way.
Ditto.
And then I almost said the dependency that Beth has on her parents, but it's actually the other way around. She's made them dependent on her by being this always available, selfless person to a fault.
Well, out of all of them, the one I thought had the best everything was Yolanda, and more so because, I mean, they were a little heavy-handed in terms of the change in her demeanor after she went through all that. But the experience was so real world. It was so contemporary. It was so now. It was not something. It wasn't comic booky. It was real life happening to this young lady, and then the impact changes her life forever. Changes her countenance. Changes the way she carries herself. Changes the way she sees her future. Changes the way her family treats her, and then we see it in subsequent episodes where she's like, Wildcat is what I got going for me now. Something I can feel good about, something I can look forward to, because so much else of what she had was just cut off and shut down.
Right.
And so I forgot the actress's name, but she plays all of that so well.
Yvette Monreal.
Yvette Monreal. She plays it so well. She communicates all of that on Yolanda's face, and not really with words many times, just the look. And so that's the character I think has the most well-rounded, most understandable, most everything in terms of their civilian identity, because Courtney doesn't have any of that until we meet her biological dad. Then she begins to get some of that. But Stargirl just kind of is because she is.
Because the staff chose her.
Yeah, but I'm saying she's able to do things she shouldn't be able to do. We saw her do a few gymnastics moves and use that staff like it was a balance beam, like in the first or second episode. And now she's doing flippity-foo, at the level that, with no training, she's just doing all this stuff. And the staff is doing most of the work. Like the staff saved Barbara. That was not Courtney.
Right.
So,
and then Barbara watches Courtney fight later and goes, wow, you were amazing. But I really did like that backstory episode that they did on Wildcat. And for those who haven't watched it yet, you're missing out. But it was a very real world thing where it talks about, she was dating Brainwave Jr. None of them had code names at the time. And reluctantly sent him a photo of her on her phone that for the longest time, I didn't think Henry Jr. sent those pictures out. I thought for sure that Cynthia Berman was the one behind that, because that was her kind of mean girl deal. But what really got me was when she got into the Wildcat persona, had something going for herself, sat down with her family at the end of the episode, and you're thinking, okay, yeah, this is the typical formula. You sit down, you own up to your consequences. The family says, yes, we love you very much, and we're glad that you've learned from this. And that didn't happen. It's like the mom was still like, no, you've shamed our family. This is like, whoa, that's
right.
Some cold-hearted mom there.
That's right. And so, she was running for student body president, and she was just on a different trajectory. Yeah. And now all of that's gone. And like I said, the only time she smiles is when she's thinking about being Wildcat. Otherwise, she still has that hurt. And I can't imagine being that poor girl just walking around the school like that, because, it's digital, so it's not going anywhere. I mean, it might not be online, it might be, but it's always going to be somewhere.
Always going to be on somebody's phone.
Right. And so, so what I'm really hoping is that she when she graduates, she leaves Blue Valley. She won't for the sake of the show. But I mean, if I could do anything for the character, I would have her find a school, find somewhere, go somewhere. I'd even change her name, maybe change her hair. I'd do like a, witness protection kind of thing on myself and just go somewhere and start over, because she has too much going for her to have to be hindered for the rest of her life because of one mistake, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, they really haven't shown that she's still being impacted on a personal level by that in school, because now we're focused so much on their JSA lives.
Yes.
In fact, we're so focused on their JSA lives that the only person who seems to be having parental secrecy issues with being a superhero is, of course, Stargirl. It's like, the rest of the JSA can just leave their house whenever they want and go put on a costume, and there's no having to explain to parents where I'm going and why I'm gone. I mean, Wildcat, Yolanda Montez, she's still grounded as far as I know from the end of that episode. So she's sneaking out and putting herself at risk every time she goes out. That's
right. And I talked about that actually on my latest podcast about how when they go to, was that Barbara's mother's house, when they go on the camping trip?
Yes.
About how all the kids just kind of show up. And I'm like, don't you need to get permission from your parents? Or don't, normal parents would talk to other parents and say, hey, so-and-so wants to come on this trip with us. Is it okay? There'd be some type of open communique. There wouldn't just be a house full of kids with one couple as a chaperone and didn't nobody talk to anybody. Because if I knew anything about that, if that was my child, I would break that up with a quickness. I'm like, you don't know these people. That kind of thing. And also
especially as quickly as it was put together. This was a camping trip that was like, we had to cut and run right now.
Right. And, and so people there, I may not know, and what are the sleeping arrangements and what are the activities planned, and there's just no itinerary and we're just going to be gone. No, that's not my parenting style. Let me put it that way.
Yeah. So, well, the good news is that the parents are all going to be mind wiped by this whole brainwave process. I guarantee you that once they get their control back, no one's going to remember what happened in the last 24 hours.
Oh my goodness. But one thing I will say is that the character that I think that has had the greatest turnaround is Mike. When we first meet Mike, he's the super annoying little kid brother, very stereotypically so. But in the space of these episodes, we've seen kind of him open his heart. We've seen him once again. It was written very real world that when you have a blended family where you have one biological parent and the other one is not, and then you have a sibling that's from the non-biological parent, and you guys are trying to make it work. And all of the emotions that come with that. And Mike was very honest, very raw about how he felt. And that's really what started to turn the tide in terms of audience sentiment, at least for me. And then, once finding out that his stepsister Stargirl, they're setting him up to be the Thunder Mole, or to be the new Johnny Thunder. We thought it was going to be Jakeem because he mentioned him.
He mentioned Jakeem, yeah.
But I really think Mike is going to pick up that pen now, because he tried to pick up the staff and the staff didn't respond. I thought that was just like foreshadowing.
Yeah. Well, there's another tool in the house he could pick up.
Don't say the Green Lantern battery.
Alan Scott has no use for it.
Can you see Mike as a Green Lantern? No.
I can't see Mike as taking up the Thunderbolt, though, because I think that the CW writers are canny enough to say, why would we take a black character and replace him with a white actor? I don't think they want that kind of blowback. I think they want to have Jakeem come in and take them.
Who knows that besides us? Besides longtime comic readers, who knows that the new Johnny Thunder?
Wikipedia knows.
No, okay, all right.
And once Wikipedia knows, it'll get out.
I see what you're saying. Maybe, because those are the kinds of times we live in. But one or two things is going to happen to Mike. Mike is either going to become a superhero or he's going to die. He's the most expendable character out of all that. Him or Barbara. Yeah. I really hope they don't get rid of Barbara, because I think she's really beginning to come into her own, because we really got to see kind of her reaction to the whole thing, and I want to see that play out. And her and Pat are in a funny place in their relationship, because she's like, well, you've been lying to me from the beginning, so now it's kind of a where do we go from here thing. So I really want to see how that plays out. But either
Barbara and Mike were really underutilized for the first half of the series. I mean, their
yeah,
whole purpose in life was to be the person whom the secret is kept from,
right, that's right.
and
That's
always
right.
operate under the radar from them. But when Barbara, when the love triangle starts building between Pat, Barbara, and Jordan, the icicle,
Yeah.
I thought that was very interesting. And then the moment where Barbara really started to shine for me was in that next to last episode where she's already mad at Pat. She's gone back to her office. Pat comes in to talk to her, and then Jordan and his parents come in, and she's canny enough to record the conversation on her phone and have Siri translate it for her later so that she can figure out, okay, they really are these bad guys that you're telling me that they are. What are we going to do about it?
Well, the episode where Rick finally decodes the notebook by plugging in the year make of the Mustang car, I'm like, whatever. We see where your father's priorities were. That whole episode, from that point on, was a Scooby-Doo scenario because they made all these logical leaps. They made all these, and I don't mean the leaps were logical. I mean leaps of logic to try to connect the dots. And they connected all the right dots in the right way, the right time. That's Scooby-Doo writing. Nobody was wrong. Nobody said, well, what about this? What about that? It's like, no, this means this. And so that means that. So this means this. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Scooby-Doo stuff. And so.
Exactly.
And it also.
The number should have been, I know exactly what the number should have been to plug that in and make it work, but they weren't going to go that way.
Which is what?
3x29yz4a.
Oh, yes. Yes. Yes.
That formula would have been a great Easter egg to have thrown in.
No, that's absolutely right. That's absolutely right. So, but like I said, now that they basically, because all of the protagonists are together now, so all the powered ones and the non-powered ones as well. So after they bent over backwards, having Mike have that heart-to-heart with Courtney about, I wish I could do something like that. I wish I could be like you. I wish I could. And Courtney very unselfishly said, go ahead and grab the staff. I mean, maybe she didn't know what was going to happen, but she was willing to give it a shot, which I thought was very unselfish of her. I was like, wow.
Yeah.
But that was so heavy-handed until now either Mike is going to get some kind of powers or he's going to croak.
He could be the new Stripey or even Stripe, but that would mean that they have to get Pat Dugan out of the picture.
I mean, he's the heart of the show, man. They can't kill Pat. That'll be a huge mistake.
Well, they could Professor Xing. They could, make it so he can't operate the suit anymore, but still be the mentor.
He's the bridge to every set of characters. The one connector character is Pat. He's a connector to the ISA. He's connected to the old JSA. He's a connector to Courtney and her family. He's a connector to training the new JSA. He's
and the 7 Soldiers of Victory.
And the 7 soldiers, right. Speaking of which, they had Shiny Knight show up with some buckets of chicken.
Yeah.
I said, wait, hold on, time out, wait just a second.
I brought sustenance.
An episode or two ago, this man was catatonic and didn't remember who he was. He was seeing enemies instead of friends. He wasn't sure what he was making out. He was fighting, swinging at everything. He couldn't remember his own name or what happened to him. And in the space of an episode or two, he then got in the car, drove to the Colonel, and come back with some buckets of chicken and figured out where the barber's. I'm like, wait. I'm like, did y'all give him a Omen tracker or something? And now he know how to go to the Colonel and he don't know what his name is. And he don't know every time you look at something, it could be a cow or it could be a zombie or it could be a friend. But you're going to go get a couple of buckets extra crispy. I was like, come on, man. You know how they have come on, man on sports? That was the come on, man moment for me. I was like, come on, man. Oh, but anyway.
Well, if he's there, though, then there might still be other old school heroes that are going to be showing up at some point. I'm going to say the longest odds of any of those characters ever making a recurrence is going to have to be their Green Arrow. I don't see that one showing up. I'd love it. I'd love to see a different Oliver Queen in the Arrowverse. And maybe the same Oliver Queen. Wouldn't it be a hoot to have the same actor come back for a guest shot in a 7 Soldiers reunion?
I said that on Twitter. I actually tagged Stephen Amell in it, and I'm like, it'd be great if Oliver does show up, that it's our Oliver, which I think would be awesome. I don't know if he wants to suit up again, though. He was pretty burnt out when he finished.
Yeah.
And I had much respect for him for knowing when it was time to hang it up. And I can't
suit up differently.
Yeah, but I can't imagine the hours, that he put in to be an Oliver. So, he knew it was time to let it go. So maybe, he wouldn't be ready to come back. But what we have to be careful of, what they have to be careful of is, just like with The Flash, this show can very, very quickly get overcrowded. It's teetering on the edge.
Yeah.
Because it's not really Stargirl, it's Stargirl in the JSA. So that's not wrong or bad, but that's what the show is. And so they're kind of right on the edge of being a little overcrowded. So we have 3 or 4 power characters. We got the mentor character who's got a super suit. We've got the 2 human characters that are part of Courtney's family. That's a nice rounded balance. And then we got the villains. And the villains we have the adult villains and some junior counterparts, although Artemis, well, we don't know if she's a villain yet, but City's the only one that survived so far. Because Brainwave Jr., Wizard Jr., and Icicle Jr., so
they're out. So the remaining legacies on the ISA side that I recall will be Cindy Berman, Shiv, and we see her in the previews for the final episode, so we know she gets out of her cage to fight. And then there is Artemis, who is as competitive as her parents are. Hates, when she gets mad at a coach dies.
Right.
and then Isaac Bowen, who Heroinberg in the chat here references, when he says, the reason they killed Amaya was to
yes,
basically open the door for Isaac to come in and say, I want revenge.
Yes.
Which means he's going to blame somebody else.
Now with Icicle Jr., has he shown powers?
Yes, he has.
Okay.
He hasn't noticed it yet, but they did make a point of showing steam come off of his breath at a restaurant scene where he was having the memorial diner scene with his dad over her mom's death.
Okay, I don't remember. Okay, cool.
Yeah, but it was just real subtle. It was like, oh, I see it. It's there. They've all got their powers. We don't know where they're going to align. I was really hoping Brainwave Jr. would, follow the comic book course where he was a member of Infinity Inc. at that time.
Right.
Still the generation of the next JSA.
Well, they've also gone to the edge of making Brainwave pretty much overpowered. So they're going to have to kind of pull out all the stops to actually beat him, because as it stands now, he's relatively unbeatable. The way, if I was writing, the way I could see them beating him is they would definitely have to work more as a team. If they came at him, not one at a time like they always do in these shows, but came at him as a team, and maybe Beth blinds him, maybe Yolanda scratches him and hurts him, and maybe Courtney can take him out. If they had a coordinated attack, I could buy that. But as it stands now, he's super OP as it is now.
Well, I imagine that the Cerebro unit that he's plugged into.
Yeah.
Because let's face it, when he opened that door and walked in, and there's that big long ramp with a circle, and I'm like, where did they get the X-Men set for Cerebro?
Right. We all said it was like, oh, Cerebro. Okay, great.
Yeah, that's going to power surge and feed back into him, and it's going to jellify his brain again, and he's going to be a helpless kind of person. Because right now, there's only 2 things that they can do. With the ISA completely aware of all the identities of the JSA, they can either kill them all, which is the first trope that happens in comics. You learn the hero's identity, you're gone. Or they're going to run it like the Flash and let every villain know who they are, but never really do anything about it other than attack you in your privacy. Like on the Flash, every villain knows that Barry Allen is the Flash.
Well, everybody named Mama know that Barry Allen's in the Flash on that show. There's another alternative that's very comic booky, and that alternative could. I
got an interruption.
Oh, okay, no problem. That alternative could be they have some bad feedback on that device, and it, like you said, it wipes the memory. But in comic books, there's always selective memory wipe. Sometimes it's total memory wipe, but most of the time it's selective memory wipe. that include secret identities. So
They could do a Zatanna on them.
yeah, that's true too. And I'm glad you brought that up. That's another thing. The question now becomes, they're going to have to introduce magic on some level. If they bring in Thunderbolt, if they bring in Zatanna, they also might bring in some Marvels. Now, at first I was kind of excited about that idea, but then I realized it'll be the Shazam, it'll be the New 52 version. It won't be the classic version because I like the classic versions. But one way or another, next season, I got a pretty strong feeling they're going to bring in magic users. Dr. Fate, Zatanna, Black Adam, and Thunderbolt, just to name 4 they could bring in. That is going to completely change the game. So that's what I mean when I say I'm wondering, because it all hinges on how they wrap things up this week. Because if the ISA survives on any level and they remember who all the kids are, there's no way they just don't go after them again. If they don't survive, if they're all gone, then it'll be kind of that kind of reset. And then we'll see who the villains are next season. Because we're going to have, plus also, they're probably not going to get rid of Grundy. I'm sure he's going to survive because he's too good of a character to kill off, because he's basically DC Hulk on some level. So that's what I'm waiting to see is how they resolve it all, because that's going to be very indicative to me of where we go. Female Bulleteer. Oh, probably not.
That would be interesting.
Yeah. It really would. So I mean, that's the thing. But magic users are going to escalate, and if they don't have villains that have commensurate powers to deal, because Thunderbolt can fix everything, Black Adam can beat everybody, Zatanna, just so much can happen. And Dr. Fate, that's the one I want to see. But and also, they might fool around. Who invented Teen Lantern? Wasn't that Bendis? That wasn't Johns, was it?
That was Bendis.
Yeah. So they might bring on Teen Lantern. They might introduce yet another Black girl or maybe another girl of color, whatever, and all of a sudden she gets the power ring.
Well, I think they're going to stay away from anything that's tied to the Justice League versions of characters, because this is sticking with more of the classic JSA. So I can see Dr. Fate. And again, Dr. Fate's power comes from whoever's wearing the helmet. Everything has been costume power driven. Hawkman is in that original picture of the JSA that they show. And his, of course, was the wings are a strap-on device that is powered by the nth metal. The only person that they've showed who has superpowers that are inherent to himself is the Flash. And I'm hoping that they don't say, that Jay Garrick invented a helmet that gave him super speed, and put it in the helmet so that somebody could put the hat on and become the next Flash character. That would just suck.
Well, I'm hoping that John Wesley Shipp shows up as Jay Garrick. I would love that.
Please do.
I would love that.
One of the things that we did notice at the end of Crisis, when they were showing the multiverse being expanded again, and nobody in the Arrowverse realizing this as of yet, was that when they showed the Stargirl clip, they labeled that Earth 2. And we know that throughout the Arrowverse and the Flash series, the Earth 2 was the home of Harrison Wells and Jesse Quick.
Yes.
Who would be a very cool and definitely a JSA legacy character if they were to bring that in. In the JSA, Jesse Quick was Johnny Quick's daughter. Johnny Quick being the poor man's Flash. It was fast, but not Flash fast. Not Flash fast.
That's right. Kind of like Quicksilver.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, now remember, they said, I think it is second or third episode, they made a point of saying that the Hawks died in the attack.
Yeah.
So
but the wings are still there.
Okay, wings are still there. And I think Jay Garrick got away. I don't think they said he died. Maybe I have to go back and look at it again. I just remember they made a point of the Hawks dying, and we know, like you said, whoever has the helmet of Naboo can become the new Dr. Fate. For the longest time, I thought Barbara was secretly Liberty Bell. So
that would have been fun.
Yeah, some friends
That
of
would have
mine
really
said,
made Mike feel like an outcast.
yeah, some friends of mine said that they need to keep her unpowered because everybody doesn't need to have powers because that's kind of a CW trope, as we know. But and the Black Adam movie, because there's definitely going to be different actors. They don't like to mix the movie world and the TV world, although they did do it with Ezra Miller in Crisis. So all bets are off now.
That was a nicely played scene when they did that.
And they opened the
and
door.
If they really want to do that right, then when the Flash movie comes out, that has to be an interstitial scene of the movie.
Yeah.
There has to be a crisis in the Flash movie, not this crisis, but some sort of crisis. And he's messing around with timelines, and Barry Allen, Grant Gustin walks in, and they do that exact same scene, and they integrate it into the movie. That would really make the tie.
That would be really tight. Yeah. So everything's so up in the air with scheduling though because of the pandemic. So we don't know what's going to happen when. We kind of have to take it as it comes. But and the other thing about because I'm hoping they also introduce Mr. Terrific, but I'm wondering if they're going to bring in Curtis from Arrow, or if they're going to make another. They're going to recast or just have another different character. So I mean, if they're going to go with if they're going to go with kind of like the full rebranded new John's version of the JSA, then I want to see everybody. I want to see Atom Smasher. I wouldn't mind seeing a Jesse Quick that's blonde for a change because all of our speedsters are brunettes. I'm like, it would be nice if we had some blondes and gingers like they actually are in the comics. But that's a nitpick of mine. Cyclone, yeah, that's a nitpick of mine. So I kind of want to see where they go with that. Another thing, because I talked about this before on my podcast, is I really would like for them to do the Billy and Courtney romance. I know that's going to be really tricky for the same reason it's tricky in the comics. But yeah, you got it. That's right. Yeah. Except, like I said, this will be the brat Billy Batson and the thug Billy Batson, and it won't actually be Billy, which is a shame. But it sets up such an incredible storyline and everything that would come along with what they'd have to deal with, because they would only actually be able to date out of costume. They couldn't actually date in costume, in character, which would be really fascinating, I think.
They did that in the comic, and I don't know if they ever resolved that, because Jay Garrick had a keen eye for the fact that, hey, Captain Marvel is always pulling out Stargirl's chair, and come on, you're 30 and she's 15. What's going on here? This is bad optics.
Alan Scott too.
And the wisdom of Solomon wouldn't let Billy tell them, hey, I'm just a 14-year-old kid.
Right.
But the wisdom of Solomon certainly wasn't telling him, don't interact with her while you're in adult form. That's a bad idea.
Well, that also gets into, because it's a debate that always rages, but I, normally defer to my friend Carl, Captain Marvelology on Twitter, because people try to understand if Billy and Captain Marvel are two different people. Is Captain Marvel just Billy super powered up? What's the deal there? Because the question then becomes, he has the body of a man. Does he still have the mind of a child, even with the wisdom of Solomon? The movie Shazam says yes. The movie Shazam says that's Billy. It's big with superpowers, which is an incarnation I can't stand, but I'm not going to rant right now. But it's big with superpowers. It's Billy with that adult body hoisted on him, as opposed to the maturity of a grown man, along with the wisdom of Solomon, coming along with that grown man body, which makes it Billy as an adult, which is kind of how they resolved it in the comics, that it's actually Billy, but it's Billy 15 years from now with the power endowments.
The man he grows into becoming.
Right, that's right.
Which we saw in Kingdom Come.
Exactly.
We had the grown-up Billy Batson, and then, of course, when he says Shazam, he just is, now costumed up. Which begs the question, when he's 80 years old, does he still become the 30-year-old Captain Marvel?
Right, there's that too. He's the world's mightiest mortal, but, the way now Frank Miller told it, he's one of the few writers who said that Billy and Captain Marvel were two different people. And when he said his magic word, they changed places. And in The Dark Knight Strikes Again, Billy died years ago. So if Captain Marvel, when he changes this time, he's going to disappear into nothingness, because Wonder Woman or Batman asked him where would you go? And he says, the same place a dream goes, nowhere. And then that's how he goes out. He says the magic word for the last time in front of Wonder Woman. It just disappears, which I thought was an interesting take. But if they do it to where they're the same person, then yeah, that'll be a 30-year-old man and his girlfriend's 15, and we can't have that. But then when he's not powered up, he's 14 or 15 himself. And so that's cool. So like I said, it presents a really interesting dynamic. And in Kingdom Come, like you said, when Billy grows up, he's Captain Marvel, just not powered up. And so in Kingdom
They've
Come,
had to get past some licensing issues, because that's always been the big bugaboo of the DC CW shows and the DC movies is, oh, we can't get Clark in costume on Smallville. Oh, we can't have Bruce Wayne show up. Even in Batwoman, we can't have Batman show up because it's tied up with the movie rights.
Right.
Hopefully,
which is ridiculous, by the way. That's ridiculous, but okay.
Absolutely is. When we watched the last episode last week, we got to see the ISA's goals and what they were after, and I thought that was a nice little surprise. That's like, what do we want? We want to combat global warming. We want to rely on solar and wind energy. we want universal health care. And Rick's like, are we on the right side here, guys?
Right. I thought that was a nice touch. I thought that was well written, if a bit heavy-handed. But I do think that because good conflicts are always about morals and values. And so they're talking about benevolent fascism.
Yes.
So basically, like Dr. Doom, they're saying, we know better, and you guys are pretty much just peons and pawns. But since you don't know how to create a better life or a better world for yourselves, we're just going to jump on in and do that for you by taking over your brainwaves and your thought patterns. But when we do that, we're going to implement policies that make the most sense and do the most good, since our political system does not allow that to happen now. So it's a very well-written moral dilemma in terms of ends justifying means and motives and,
Yeah, and if it wasn't for the fact that they're willing to sacrifice 25 million lives to make this happen.
Which is Project Insight. Now, do you watch Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.?
Sometimes.
Okay, well, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is coming up on their series finale. Series finale is airing this Wednesday, 2-hour series finale. Long story short, they've kind of revived Project Insight, but with a new villain and with a new approach. But the concept is still the same. And so as we see in The Winter Soldier, Robert Redford's character says, killing 20 million to save 7 billion is the next step if you have the courage to take it. And Fury says, but I have the courage not to, because, freedom and choice and all that kind of stuff. So it's basically the same idea they're playing with there, that if we know, but with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., they're doing it a little bit like Civil War II. So they actually altered the time stream and did a lot of time jumps. And now they're saying, we know that these people are going to grow up to commit these heinous acts. So we're going to kill them now before they have a chance to do that.
Oh, boy.
That's kind of part of what Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is playing with. And so that's not quite what they're doing here on STARGIRL. But again, the idea of imposing their will on others with the larger goal of putting some things in society that they feel like need to be there. And I'm
look where they set up and where they're taking over. They went to Blue Valley, which is in Nebraska. It's like right in the middle of the country. And their influence, once their machine is powered up, is going to take over pretty much all of flyover country, which as a voting bloc would be the voters that would be against the ideas that they're pushing for whatever reasons, leaving the coasts, which would be for these ideas most of the time, which means that they're not going to take over the middle of the country. They will have lined the entire country, and it'll all be New America.
That's right.
Once, of course, they get past the fact that they just killed 25 million people to do this.
Well, Americans, every country has a different level of national identity, and every country has cultural artifacts that are part of its structure. Part of what happens in America is people rebel at the idea of being controlled or told what to do. And part of that is good if it diffuses centralized power, but the other part of it is bad when there's actually something happening and you do need to be told what to do for your own good. And that's what we see happening with the pandemic. So a lot of people refuse to wear masks because they say it's not about health, it's about control. And a lot of people are pushing the idea that it's, once again, it's some type of lefty conspiracy. So the whole world has decided to conspire for liberal Democrats in America, and all these people have died because they're trying to perpetuate some lefty hoax. Okay, whatever. And so you have people that are refusing to engage in any type of health practices because, we're being tricked, we're being controlled, it's not real, nobody's going to tell me what to do, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, well, a lot of people are going to die. Herman Cain died, okay? He was there then, and he died.
Joe Diffie died. A lot of people died that, you don't, just because you don't know the names of some of the people who have died in this pandemic doesn't mean that they're not out there doing it.
That's right. So I'm saying
It's
that's
the
one of the
celebrities that have come through
drawbacks.
and died that,
Right. That's one of the drawbacks of the so-called American independent spirit. Part of the drawback, having the idea that you can't ever be told what to do. Sometimes it is time to take a stand if something is unjust or whatever. That's one thing. Just like I wrote on Twitter, somebody was asking about, would you support teachers if they were to strike for their own health and for the kids? I said, that's not an if, that's a when. Them teachers, a whole bunch of teachers, going unionize or not, they're going to say, we are not marching into a situation that's going to guarantee, because even if they don't contract it, they can be asymptomatic carriers and take it back home to people in their family. Why? So my point in bringing all that up is that it's very real world in terms of the American idea of never being told what to do. But the downside is if something that's happening and something is for your good and you're not even willing to receive it because you don't want to be told what to do.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if there was going to be a conspiracy to make us do something, it wouldn't be something as silly as let's see if we can get people to wear paper masks all over the place.
Right.
Speaking of wearing masks, to bring it back to our original topic, what do you think of the costumes that they've done for Stargirl in comparison to the costumes they've done for things like Legends of Tomorrow and Arrow and Flash?
Okay. Stargirl herself is pitch perfect. If Stargirl walked out of the comic book and came out here in real life, she'd look like that. So I have not one line of criticism for Stargirl's look. That is that character realized in live action, hands down. The other end of that spectrum is Dr. Midnight, because nothing about Beth Chapel and that character looks like the original Dr. Midnight or even the Beth Chapel character in the comic. So I don't know what they were thinking there, but no, she's none of what.
Beth Chapel looks like a 12-year-old in a Halloween costume. Which is weird because Angelica Washington does not look like a 12-year-old when you see her out of the Beth Chapel role. Right.
But she definitely looks like not so good cosplay as Beth. Stripe is perfect, but of course that's CGI. The robot is CGI, but they do have, I do think they have a life-size model, if I'm not mistaken. I saw some behind-the-scenes videos, so I think they did build an actual life-size robot. Obviously, it's not operational. It's to stand there and be real world and not be CGI, which would be so cool just to be in a room with that. But
that's got to make it to the conventions when the conventions begin again, because I've got to get a picture taken by that.
Oh my goodness, we'll all line up just to stand there and touch that. But so Luke Wilson doesn't look like, he's not a ginger. He doesn't look like Pat Dugan will look, but he's played Pat so well until I've gotten past that not being a direct translation, because he's the heart of the whole show.
Yeah.
So he's won me over. Yolanda as Wildcat, the problem there is that costume doesn't translate well in general. It's like when you try to bring Batman in real life, Batman looks good in 2D printed form. Batman looks fantastic in the Arkham games. Batman looks fantastic in animation. But in real life, the best they got it was the first Keaton costume, because he was in shadow all the time. Batman works in shadow in real life. When he's out there in broad daylight, you can see every nook and cranny of his costume. Doesn't have nearly the same effect. So with the Yolanda,
I like
with
the Ben Affleck version.
The Affleck version, now that's pretty good. Affleck version is pretty cool, but he's in shadow a lot too, if you notice. Some of it is the Justice League in particular. It's broad daylight. Still looks really good, but in Batman versus Superman, a lot of it is shadow, and that's where Batman looks best. So yeah, that's probably, to this point, that's probably the best book-to-screen translation is a Batfleck. But with Yolanda, particularly her helmet, that's too much helmet. It's too much forehead going on with that helmet. So it needs to be a little bit more form-fitting, just helmet-wise. And it just kind of, I don't know how to say it. I just think it's one of those costumes that doesn't translate that well. Although, maybe it's just the female version, because the Wildcat that died in the first episode, I thought that looked pretty good. So just maybe the
it's
female
his helmet,
version,
so
is it the best? I don't know.
she's just undersized for it. I think the Hourman costume looks like Hourman as well.
Yes.
But as far as, I think they do a good job most of the way matching the comic book versions. But are they realistically effective masks is my next question on that, because they're not in Los Angeles or New York where there's like 300 million people and you have no idea who you are, even if you didn't have a mask on.
Right.
They're in Blue Valley, which, it's like, small town USA. If you grow up in small town USA, you're the new kid in school. You got long curly blonde tresses and you're of a certain build, and then you just put a domino mask on. Oh, you're the new kid. Why are you wearing a mask?
I was going to say, it's the same weakness of the Hal Jordan costume. The Ryan Reynolds version of Hal Jordan is the hair.
Yeah.
There's no one, how can you not know that's you? This doesn't do it. And so, Courtney and Breck has a very specific look. And this kind of mask, you need a cowl and a wig, like old school Black Canary used to wear.
Exactly.
You need a wig. You need to either be wigged up when you're Stargirl or wigged up when you're Courtney, but not changing your hair color or style is not going to keep your identity secret. So Yolanda is the one that is most likely not to be recognized, followed by Hourman. But Hourman has the problem of Robin. You got neon yellow in your hoodie and your cape.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and then Courtney's got this magic glow staff. So those costumes are not built for stealth. So like you said, in a small town, you just follow the Stargirl trail. If you ever see her flying above, all you have to do is follow her to her house.
Exactly. Yeah. Halloween in a small town, you know exactly who every kid is at your door who knocked in their costume. You're like, oh, hey, Billy, I like your Superman costume.
And the other thing that I don't think we've seen yet, correct me if I'm wrong, but the other thing that we haven't seen is Rick's hourglass power wear off.
No,
what does he do when he goes back to normal strength? Because we keep seeing him turn it over and he gets souped up. Yeah, okay, great. Some point, however, because the whole key to the original Iron Man was that I'm only powered up for an hour and then I got to do something else. So at some point,
you got to take an uphill.
They need to introduce that, because that's kind of the fun of the character, is to see how he reacts to his built-in limitations. But in terms of the sheer look, Stargirl's perfect, Stripe is perfect, but that's CGI. Our Man's really, really good. Dr. Midnight's kind of like cosplay, and the whole Yolanda Wildcat thing. When you look at the comic version of the character, her head and her cowl is a little bit smaller, and she's a little bit more svelte, and just everything about that is a little bit of a different look, because this actress, Yvette, is a little bit taller, or at least the Wildcat's costume makes her look taller and a little bit thinner. And so that look is, I don't know, sometimes it just looks kind of funny to me.
Yeah, well, part of that is also seeing something realized in real life, but because off the comic book page, it does look a little weird.
Right.
But they still look good. I've been very, very happy that Jeff Johns has held such a tight rein on this show and kept it close to the original vision. I know a lot of people were concerned that season 2, which has already been confirmed, is going to be filmed straight for the CW. I don't know if they're going to get to exert any more influence than they already do, since Johns is going to continue to helm the show. But hopefully they don't CWify it too much. It's already had its CW moments coming in over the life of the series, and they've kept those at bay.
Well, as soon as they give Courtney a love interest, and as soon as they make it a triangle, we know it's over.
It's over, yes.
And
well,
somebody in the JSA is going to have to start dating. So my money's on Yolanda and Rick. So, but a friend of mine said it could be Yolanda and Beth. I was like, oh dang, I thought about that.
Well, that's the CW way, isn't it? I mean,
yes.
We tend to overemphasize that a lot with the characters. I mean, well, hello, this was the whole point of this series, was not that there's a female Batwoman running around, but all the other stuff was took front and center plot driving device.
Well, they shot themselves in the foot with the promos. I mean, that's got to be a study in how not to introduce your show to the world, because they had a promo that said their version of Alfred, the young black guy, Diet Curtis, said the costume was little perfection. She says it will be when it fits a woman, and fail.
Yeah,
they had another promo.
That line could have been rescued if they'd have just said it will be when it fits me. Then it would have said something about the character. It's like, oh, you're very self-absorbed. You're going to have to get over that. But with the other way, it became, oh, this is feminist agenda kind of thing, and that was a complete turnoff to a large percentage of the audience.
Right. They made it gender wide, which was not necessary. And then on the other one, she said, I don't want a man getting credit for a woman's work. Once again,
she stole his work.
Okay. Stole his costume, stole his tech, working out of the Batcave, but whatever. That line also could have been rescued with, I don't want Bruce getting credit for my work. Changes the whole line. And then the focus is on what I think they were trying to say, which was, I want people to know it's Batwoman. I want people to know it's me. That we could have lived.
And again, that change personalizes it rather than has it be a general statement.
That we could have lived with, but I don't want a man, get credit for a woman's work. Everything about you is a spinoff from Batman.
You go now.
Everything about you. So if we start to see those elements creep in, Courtney very quickly getting a love interest and us spending more time with her angsting about her boyfriend than being
who would, by the way, become the star of the show.
Yes. And then if there's a triangle, and then if Rick and Yolanda get involved, or Yolanda and Beth get involved, or whatever, and then it becomes more about that, then we're like, no, it's over, because they have spent the vast majority of their time with their JSA selves in this first season, which I really didn't have a problem with. I wanted some more personal development for Courtney, but in terms of just the sheer emphasis and focus, I'm fine with the balance as it is. More costumes, more actions, that's fine with me.
I think they're going to bring in, I think next season we're going to see Jakeem Thunder. We may see Mike continue to be the snapper car of the group. He was JLA. But just the gosh, I know all these superhero characters, and I can't do anything except be a sneak attack every once in a while if they get, that was
me and my drill.
Yeah, exactly. That's what happened in the last episodes. Like, the super characters on several fronts were being taken down, and the civilians with no powers were the ones jumping in and turning the tide of things. Barbara did it when Tigress was in the house. Mike did it when Sportmaster was in the garage.
Well, it's because except they messed up Dr. Ito. That's another conversation. But with the villains, I love the villains, but they're overpowered. And the thing about these villains is that they've got the years of experience. So there's actually no way that these kids could be coming in now at their entry level, superhero entry level, and setting up to these villains. But particularly Sportsmaster and Tigress, those two in particular, everything about, because they're kind of like Deadshot, they're kind of like Bullseye. Their whole thing is they aim, they don't miss. Their whole thing is they come after you, they get you. Their whole thing is these villains, these characters have been mercenaries for years now. So I'm saying those two in particular, there's no way that Courtney and anybody, Pat should have done better. But then again, we're just talking about regular Pat against Sportsmaster. He should have put up more of a fight, but Sportsmaster could still take Stripesy out. Not that quick, but they're not peers.
Yeah.
And so, you know, so like they had to come up with some type of comic book way to get him out of that, because I'm like, you're outmatched in every way you can be. So,
yeah, Stripesy should be a little bit of a better fighter because he didn't have the robot when he was fighting with the Seven Soldiers of Victory.
That's right.
And the JSA. He had to be a bare knuckle brawler.
Right.
So he should know a little bit more about that than he lets on. But you know, they've all softened over time too, I think. We don't know. I guess the ISA's really been out of commission working on building their machine for the last 10 years. So they haven't been, you know, trying to do the whole, they haven't been fighting anybody that we're aware of.
Yeah, well, Sportsmaster stays in shape though, remember? He's always in shape.
He does stay in shape, yes.
So Tigress and Artemis is just, you know, just probably the biggest roid rage girl we've ever seen. She's roided out, man. She's angry, she's aggressive, she's just in your face all the time.
Now, the weird thing is that they didn't just all go to Blue Valley and then have kids, because these kids are Courtney's age. So Courtney was already a 6-year-old when the ISA JSA battle happens in the beginning of episode 1. So we know that so they had kids at home, is what I'm trying to say. They'd already had these kids going on. But anyway, we've gone on far too long on this. We could continue going on. I'm going to catch it Wednesday morning when it replays on the app. I don't catch it Tuesday. If I don't catch it Tuesday night, I don't have the DC streaming. I don't know how you catch it, but it's
on the stream. So I try to catch it as soon as possible because everybody's spoiling it on Twitter. So
okay. Well, I'm gonna not read you on Monday because I want to catch it on Tuesday night then. David, it's been a pleasure having you on the chat.
Thanks so much.
Looking forward to it. Hoping to see Courtney show up on a crossover with the Arrowverse when they get back in the swing of things, maybe get another Crisis and discover Earth 2. I'd love to see that happen. But
Flash isn't coming back till January of 2021.
Yes. All right. Take care, my friend. Everybody in the chat, thanks for showing up. There's a link below to David's YouTube channel. Everybody hit that, subscribe to it so you can get some of the best podcasts for the Flash and the CW shows that there are out there. Take care.